Fame illuminated her face. Silence haunted her nights. For decades, millions adored Sally Field for her warmth, charm, and unforgettable screen presence. But while the world celebrated her, behind closed doors lived a woman quietly battling scars so deep, they often threatened to consume her completely. How does someone so loved by the world carry such invisible pain for so long? And why did it take her nearly a lifetime to finally reveal the truths she hid behind every smile? Beneath the glow of awards and applause was a child lost, a woman bruised, and a survivor fighting to reclaim her voice. Sally Field was born in 1946 in Pasadena, California, into a life that looked ordinary from the outside but was full of emotional landmines. Her parents divorced when she was only 4, tearing apart the stability every child desperately needs. Her stepfather, Jack Mahoney, a stuntman in Hollywood, stepped into her life not as a comfort, but as a source of deep silence and emotional distance. He never raised a hand to her, but the coldness in his presence, the way he simply ignored her emotional needs, carved a kind of loneliness that would follow her for decades. The absence of affection, the lack of connection, created a void that no applause or award could ever fill. Acting became more than a career choice. It was her escape hatch. It gave her permission to feel, to be seen, to be someone else when being herself hurt too much. Between 1965 and 1970, Sally charmed America with lighthearted roles in shows like Gidget and The Flying Nun. On screen, she was bubbly and sweet, but inside, she was fractured. She later admitted that the more perfect her performances became, the more invisible her true self felt. Every smile was a mask, every scene a way to hide the sadness underneath. That all changed in 1976 when she took on the role of Sybil, a woman suffering from dissociative identity disorder. The performance wasn't just brilliant, it was raw, honest, and heartbreaking. It earned her an Emmy and shattered the image the world had created of her as just another pretty face on TV. It also marked the first time Sally's personal pain seemed to fuel her professional power. Her vulnerability became her strength, her ability to understand trauma, a tool that allowed her to breathe life into characters in a way few others could. Her hard work and talent culminated in 2 Oscar wins, one in 1979 for Norma Rae and another in 1984 for Places in the Heart. To the public, these were moments of triumph. But behind the velvet gowns and red carpet smiles, Sally was still quietly unraveling. Her heart was bruised by love, shaped by men who alternated between worship and control, affection and harm. Among the most damaging was Burt Reynolds. To the world, they were a power couple, their relationship sparking media frenzy during the height of their fame. But privately, it was a tangled mess of dominance and emotional control. Burt didn't just want Sally's love, he wanted ownership. He controlled how she dressed, who she worked with, and even how she saw herself. He told her she was nothing without him, not as a joke, not as a line from a film, but as a chilling statement meant to keep her tethered to him. And she stayed. Again and again. She forgave, hoping love could fix what was slowly breaking her inside. The final blow came when he publicly ended their relationship during a live interview, without warning or compassion. That moment shattered what little confidence she had left, leaving her emotionally stranded in front of a nation that had no idea what she had endured behind the scenes. Even earlier in her life, the harm came not from lovers but from someone she trusted deeply. At just 14 years old, she was vulnerable and unsure, shaped by the pain of her fractured childhood. Her acting teacher, Herb Bregner, was the first adult to tell her she had something special. Those words meant the world to her. But behind the compliments were actions that blurred boundaries and planted deep, lingering confusion. He kept her after class, conducted intense emotional exercises, and asked questions that left her feeling exposed and uncomfortable. How much are you willing to sacrifice to become great? Wasn't just a lesson in acting, it was a manipulative prompt that took something from her that couldn't be named, but was deeply felt. He never laid a hand on her, but the damage was real. The silence that followed was louder than any accusation. For over 50 years, She carried that pain alone, until finally, in her memoir In Pieces, she named him. Not for revenge, but to break the silence that had held her captive for too long. Not all pain is hidden in private rooms. Sometimes it happens on the biggest stage in the world. After her second Oscar win, Sally stood on stage in front of the world and said the words that would define her forever. "You like me, right now. You really like me." It was a moment of joy, relief, and raw emotion. But not everyone celebrated with her. Fellow actor Tommy Lee Jones mocked her, publicly and cruelly, suggesting she won only because the industry wanted to see a woman in that role. His words, drenched in cynicism, felt like a dagger. That one comment, heard and spread by many, planted seeds of self-doubt so strong that she later turned down roles, including the part of Forrest Gump's mother, believing she didn't deserve the love or respect of the audience. For someone already struggling with self-worth, this betrayal from a peer wasn't just unkind, it was devastating. Her pain followed her into marriage, too. Steve Craig, her first husband, started out as a supportive partner. They had 2 sons and a shared dream of family. But as Sally's career soared, Steve faded into silence. There were no fights, no betrayals, just growing distance. The dinners became quieter, the touches more routine, the connection slowly evaporating until all that remained was a haunting loneliness in a house filled with unspoken words. His silence felt like abandonment, not with rage but with withdrawal. It hurt more because it was slow, confusing, and constant. When their marriage ended, she wasn't just heartbroken. She was exhausted by the emotional emptiness that had crept in like a fog and never left. And yet, even these public and private battles don't fully reflect the weight Sally carried. She survived 3 abortions, 2 divorces, intense depression, and at least 1 serious brush with suicide. There was a moment, standing on the balcony of a 50th floor hotel, when she contemplated ending it all. Not because she didn't want to live, but because the silence inside had become deafening. She didn't jump. That act of not jumping was one of the most powerful choices she ever made. It was her refusal to let the pain win. It was a beginning, not of happiness, but of reclamation. Today, at 78, Sally Field stands not just as a celebrated actress, but as a woman who has faced her ghosts and chosen to speak. She no longer needs the world's applause to feel whole. Her voice, once buried under expectations, pain, and fear, is now steady, strong, and honest. By naming the 5 men who left the deepest wounds, Herb Bregner, Burt Reynolds, Tommy Lee Jones, Steve Craig, and one other whose story remains complex, she didn't just tell her truth. She reclaimed her identity from the shadows they cast. Sally Field's story is not just about fame or the price of celebrity. It's about the emotional cost of silence. It's about the faces we wear and the truths we hide. She reminds us that survival isn't always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it's the quiet decision to keep going, to speak, to remember, and to heal. Her legacy is more than awards and performances. It's her bravery in letting the world finally see the woman behind the curtain. If Sally's story moved you or gave you a new way to see the woman behind the icon, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us keep telling the real stories that matter most.